welcome everyone to this special edition of Critical Conversations with the Compass Foundation. Tonight we have esteemed guests joining us, Ms. Shanta C. Prasad, former youth parliamentarian, Chris Hussain, former youth parliamentarian, Attorney at Law, Mr. Kiel Taklalsingh, and Mr. Victor Roberts, who is yet to join us in studio. He is a UNC alderman and activist. Thank you all for being here tonight and joining us. Tonight we're convening following a significant press conference led by Mayaro's Member of Parliament, Mr. Rushton Pare. MP Pare called a press conference today to speak, he said, on behalf of ordinary UNC members who want internal elections to be called when they are due in June of 2024. He said, "We are all united in a common cause. That is, we are demanding that the leadership of our party respect the voice of our members." Pare said having NATEX elections will ensure the best version and a stronger UNC goes to war with the PNP. NATEX elections are constitutionally due in June 2024. As we delve into the topic of the United National Congress internal elections, could each of you provide your initial thoughts on the significance of these elections and what they mean for our party's future?
Beautiful age. Well, then, I guess, Shanta can start us off.
I mean, when we look at the fundamental principles of the United National Congress, the Constitution promotes the rule of law, democracy, free speech, and elections should be called when elections are due. So it is imperative that these elections are called, especially as we are going into 2025 general election and being in opposition for 10 years. So we need to come together as a party and decide, well, what is important? Is it we are going into 2025 with a strong team, a winning team, or basically what we have right now? And it's important. We need to call these elections. We have to have the strong and best version of our party to take us into government.
I want to first off thank you again for having us on. I know usually on Critical Conversations we are not guests, we are really hosts. So it's interesting being able to give our point of view. But the country is at a position right now where we know in every sector we feel unstable. There's that uncanny feeling. I mean, just to walk into the studio this tonight, you looked twice and then you proceeded, when we look at the economy, we look at tourism, we look at every sector, our country is in shambles. And so what do we have? And the reality is in this country, we have a two-party system, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. And so if you are disenchanted with the People's National Movement, then the alternative to that would be the United National Congress. But the issue with the UNC for the past 10 years, they would have been incapable of being able to command the majority in the lower house to become the government and of course execute its party's policy. And so constitutionally within the UNC's constitution, they're allowed to have something called an internal election, and so there is a NATEX election constitutionally due. Interestingly, the political leader and the leadership of the United National Congress sought to advance an argument to the population, and I hope they were not trying to misguide the membership in their arguments. And so they are looking to, screen candidates. In May, is it May? I believe it's in May. Yeah. And of course, but in June, this NATEX election is due. And so what I took away from that conference is that MP Pare understood fundamentally that before he is an elected member of parliament, he's a UNC member first. And I think what I got from that is that he is able to not, and this is important as well, that his constituents throughout Trinidad and Tobago, they felt they trust him enough to confide in him, because for the past 10 years the status quo in the UNC has not changed. And the culture within the party seems sometimes tribal to perhaps personalities. And so for him to be able to mount a platform, of course I know we have Alderman Roberts joining us. I saw he joined us in the studio, so we're excited to have him on as well. And I want to hear what he has to say about this. But so MP Parry would have been able to articulate his position, but not just his position. I see him as a conduit on behalf of the people. And if you were there at the conference, I think just a conference, there are a couple hundreds seated there just to, and as he said, this is what they are asking for. They're asking for an election. And so the UNC has an opportunity now to course correct in time for the general election come next year. And I mean, I think later on we'll discuss maybe some of the inefficiencies, or how do you judge the political organization and its ability to win a general election. So that's what I got from.
Absolutely. Kyle.
I saw today's exercise as a process of which the United National Congress should be very proud. I think it was an exercise in democracy, it was an exercise in free speech. Here you had both an MP and an ordinary member asking the party to follow its constitution. And that is all that is required. If ordinary citizens or ordinary members cannot hold their party to account, then how are we to hold the government to account? I've always said, you have to have the moral authority to govern. In order to have the moral authority to govern on a national stage, you have to be able to do it in your party. You have to be able to do it in your local government, in your local organization. You have to be able to do it in your family. You have to be able to do it in yourself personally. It's a building block. So if our party is going to put off its internal elections, or was waffling about it and saying, using all of these bogus arguments about whether or not this is an election year and this is not the time, and keep your eye and keep focus on the eye of the bird and all of that nonsense. The Constitution says that elections are due in June of this year. That is only about 3 months away. The party should have announced and started to put things in place for its internal election. And as Chris said, it is insulting that what you are trying to do just before a NATEX election is due is to screen candidates. The most important role of NATEX, or one of the most important roles in the Constitution that is ascribed to NATEX, is to select candidates for electoral office. So if that's your function, your constitutional function, you have to have constitutional legitimacy to do it, and therefore to have constitutional legitimacy and democratic legitimacy and authority, you have to go to the membership. It's as simple as that. And it was about time that someone of Mr. Parry's stature spoke out. And I really, really love what he said, that if him speaking out was political suicide, then it is the rest of us and the rest of them, the rest of MPs and the rest of senators, their silence would have caused political genocide. And we are not prepared for the UNC and its membership to face political genocide. So I am happy that MP Parry spoke out.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I would like to welcome Mr. Victor Roberts on set.
Oh, just when I thought I was the loudest on the...
Thank you so much for taking
Good
Good night. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. I know you had a very, very busy day. You were seated at the head table today with MP Parry, and it is clear that you are in support of his position. Now, this is your first interview post-press conference, so please tell us a little bit as to why you have taken this stance.
Right, so let me say, first of all, good night to the viewing public, those who looked on social media. Today's exercise was, if I should put it, awesome. Added to that, if I should get right into the fact of the matter, added to that, I took a position in moving forward in helping our party to exhale. We recognize over the years that, like any organization, we may have the ups and downs and so on as we go along, but going forward, what I recognize is that there are some issues that remain existing that needs to be addressed. And moving forward in that, one of the greatest challenges that I have seen so far is, and I mean from a holistic standpoint, is the whole issue of constitution. And we have seen over the years that we fought many battles in relation to adherence to the constitution. And as of recently, we have seen the behavior of the People's National Movement in relation to our constitution. We have seen what the breaches of our constitution cause. We have seen independent institution collapse as a result of that. We have seen interference in every aspect. And therefore, I had to take that position to stand to defend our democracy in our party, because I was a strong advocate against the PNM in relation to all that took place as it relates to our constitution. And we cannot fight the PNM. We cannot fight the PNM in that regard, and then when it comes to our own house, allow it to slip under the carpet. And I saw MP Parry as that individual who will stand for what is right despite what it caused. And as Kyle was saying a while ago, his key statement to me is that he rather commit political suicide than what we are seeing by those who remain silent, that we can really put it as political genocide. Because you see, when we allow this to happen, it's not only the parties is affected. When we allow the breaches of the constitution to linger on, as we have seen, and I mean, I don't want to go so far as yet, but we have seen coming out of all of this, we have seen we had the defect of the Tobago rep that defected the PNM. We also had the youth armed officer who also defected to the PNM. We have also had where, I can't remember the last time we really had a Congress to say in terms of the women's arm and also in the youth arm. I know money was paid and so on for all of that, and in some cases 3 years it is just lingering there. So that tells us that all is not well, and somebody had to take the lead. Somebody had to show that fortitude in standing to demand that the party adhere to the constitution, and that is something that I am prepared to stand for and defend despite what it costs.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts, for taking this very strong position. Mr. Taklalsingh, you are an attorney at law, and you would have represented the UNC at several matters before the court. One would say you're a UNC lawyer. As a UNC lawyer, what is your legal opinion on the case brought forward by MP Parry? And also one thing I wanted to get your take on. In The Guardian today, the chairman of the United National Congress, Mr. Tanku, would have commented on the matter, stating that we're in March and NATEC's polls are not due yet. The party has not had any kind of discussion about internal polls, so I don't understand the logic of calling for something that is not due yet. The chairman would have called MP Parry's call for internal elections basically illogical. How would you respond to that?
Well, let's take it one step at a time. First of all, as I said in our little intro, Mr. Parry's case, let's put it like that, is a very strong one. He has rooted his case in the Constitution of the United National Congress. This isn't about ambition. This isn't about wanting to usurp anyone or throw out anybody of the party. He has come to the membership and said, look, the Constitution of our party says that elections must be held in June. Calls have been made for that election to be announced and a date to be set, etc., and those things. It is not being done. Instead of the party moving towards an internal election,
it has started to move towards general election, which is next year, and started to use the NATEX and use the party to prepare for that as though internal elections don't exist. That doesn't make sense. You know what? You know the analogy I want to draw there? It's as though fast forward, we're in 2025. We have a general election during 2025, and Imbert is doing the budget for 2026. He has to call an election first, win the election, and then be able to spend the country's money in 2026. That's exactly what is happening here in the United National Congress. We are in 2024. You have an internal election due in 2024, but you and the party and the leadership and the NATEX, the current NATEX, is planning for 2025 without crossing the bridge of the internal election. That is totally wrong. And he has rooted his argument not only in the actual clause of the Constitution, I believe it's section 18, which says that NATEX is due, but in the founding principles of the Constitution. I wanted to read one or two for your viewers. This is what every single member of the United National Congress, when you join, when you pay your fee, you agree, you are bound in a contract with not only the party, but with each and every member. That's how a constitution of a party works. It is a contract, a legal contract between you and the party as an entity and you and each and every member. And we have all agreed to foster an ethos and substance and process of democracy in all spheres and aspects of national life, in particular to promote the unrestricted freedom of citizens to participate in the choice of their representative and to encourage the implementation of principles of economic and industrial thing, to struggle against any tendency towards authoritarianism, autocracy, dictatorship, and to promote a viable diffusion of centers of power and decision making. Wasn't that what was happening today? It was a struggle against autocracy and authoritarian tendencies to bypass a legitimate process in our Constitution, which is the internal elections that has to be held in June. And MP Parry put his foot down today, a very broad and strong and powerful foot, I would say. Right. He put his foot down. He's had support from several. In fact, I wanted to make the comment, and I don't mean to throw any pick on here. This is one of the first meetings I saw where a lot of UNC members gathered. I didn't see any maxis outside, right? I saw people coming on their own, in their cars, carpooling, filling up the car park, and you just saw yellow jerseys coming out, yellow shirts coming out from different cars, different vehicles. It wasn't a brown ban or a thing. It didn't have any checkpoint. Anyway, let's get into that, right? But you actually saw an organic love and support for this call. So I am very excited as a lawyer, very excited as a member of the party that someone has come forward and electrified the party to inculcate and infuse the spirit of democracy once again in our party. As for my friend Mr. Tanku, who I respect, I know, sir, respectfully, I disagree. This is not premature. What I think is premature is the NATEX, as the point that Chris made. What I think is premature is the current NATEX that is to face election in June, rushing to screen candidates now before they put themselves up to the membership to be voted on. So that was my view on that.
Thank you very much for so meticulously explaining that Constitution. I don't think the membership is in fact aware of this binding Constitution that basically governs our party. Mm-hmm. Our next question is for Shanta. As someone looking on, you would have been a huge defender of democracy right here on Critical Conversations, a loyal protector of Mr. Pandey's legacy and what he fought for. In terms of party vision and platform, what are the key areas where the United National Congress should focus its efforts to resonate with the electorate and regain momentum?
Firstly, I think the United National Congress, its leader, its national executive, MPs, senators, this constitution that Attorney Taklalsingh spoke about, they need to remember the core principles of this constitution. You cannot stifle freedom of speech. You cannot stifle democracy. The UNC is not about serving the echelons of the party. Those on top have to serve its members. We often criticize the PNM for being a cult, but what have we become? And I'm so disturbed when I heard MP Parry this morning say that maybe he's committing political suicide. How can you be committing political suicide by calling for something that our constitution states? He did not attack the political leader. All Mr. Parry called for were internal elections. And how can the membership or the political leader, the national executive, chastise MP Parry for this? I think they need to reread the constitution and remember that the party is not one person. The party is bigger than all of us. And at the end of the day, leaders will come, leaders will go, but the party remains. And that is what they have to focus on, the core principles of the party.
Thank you, Shanta. Chris, you had recently wrote a letter to the editor in the Express. You spoke about what younger political voices are prepared to do. So here we have MP Parry coming forward. In today's press conference, he mentioned a phone call he received from a colleague, in which the colleague said, "Parry, you are a good man, a decent man. You have a long future in politics. But what you are doing is committing political suicide." Parry responded saying, "If my one voice is me committing political suicide, then the silence of every one of you is committing political genocide." The option given to him was to remain silent. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the article. When I wrote that, I wrote it from a space of socializing at that time, coming out of Carnival, and really immersing myself into different activities with my generation from university, high school, social media. You can just imagine how that time is around that very short season, by the way. And what I observed in amongst our age group is that we do not like a specific type of politics, and we don't subscribe to politics of race, politics of division, or even victimhood politics, because we have seen in this country where some persons have benefited from being a victim, and they play very well to that when they think it's necessary. And in that article, I would have said that I put the younger politicians on both benches on notice as to what are they prepared to do with the space that they occupy politically today. And so I'm very pleased to see that MP Parry, I'm not surprised though, because he has always served his constituents, and not just the constituents, but the way he would have interacted with his colleagues on both sides. You look at him in a joint select committee, you look at him in a debate, and you're able to understand his policy position. You're able to understand exactly what is his fight for, and it's for the middle class in this country. And so he's very specific, and he's a very specific guy. Was not surprised, because I think that is in his character. That is definitely in his character. And so younger persons, I think we are able to differentiate personality politics from what are you really offering in terms of policy. Now I say it is in his character, right? But he has also been able to divorce that in this press conference. This wasn't about him. This was not about the political leader. This was no attack on Mrs. Bisasa. If anything, this was the highest defense of the United National Congress's membership. I think that's very important in this. And political suicide, I don't think it is political suicide. I can definitely assure him that at least my generation, we will have the most amount of respect for him in that house now. Out of 41, I think right now we have the most confidence in him, because he is able to go beyond the political fray, even if it means risking it all, because it's the right thing to do. It's just the right thing to do. And so today, I want to put the more younger members on the UNC's bench on notice. What are they prepared to do? Are they going to simply occupy space because, and it seems to me that when it's convenient around elections, both political parties, they use young persons. They understand very much what tokenism is, and they play to it. And so you may occupy the seat today because you would have been a younger MP, you may have been a younger senator, you may have been a younger mayor. But what are you prepared to do today? Are you going to stand for what is right, or are you just going to become an old politician? So I put them on notice.
Thank you, Mr. Hussein. Why does the UNC need a reset in time for the general election? This is a question I would like to pose to all of you. I would start with Mr. Roberts.
We definitely need a reset for more than one reason. One of the reasons that stands out in my mind most of all is that I think we have come to the place where somewhere along the lines idea seems to be lacking, vision seems to be lacking. And when that happens, automatically it appears to the national public that, look, we are in a place that we stagnant, that we just cannot go forward. And Chris was making a very important point. The opportunity must present itself where we will encourage the younger, more brilliant professionals to become active politicians and not just utilize the same old, because everything in life have a lifespan. Every piece of equipment here have a lifespan. We sitting on this side here, we also have a lifespan. The sad reality is that over the years we have acknowledged, we have seen where it appears that politicians doesn't really take a step backward and look forward to see where we're going. This party is a great party. We have met the threshold in many different aspects. But, I mean, let's just go back a little bit. Coming out from 2010 and coming to 2015, we moved to 2020, we head into 2025. And I am saying that it just same old just would not work anymore. And until we understand that, look, this is not about fighting each other, but this is about putting the best team forward to take on the PNM. Because the PNM is not a fly-by-night party. The PNM is a party that understands its structure. The organs of the PNM, they are working very well. The PNM have a well-prepared machinery so that anytime an election is called, whether local, general, or even internal, they are ready. And we need to really reset the UNC and bring us to par that we would be able to stand up and contest and stand up and fight and stand up and take on any political party in this country as we move forward. So a reset is of utmost importance at this point in time in order for us to move forward as the United National Congress.
Thank you very much.
I mean, my thinking process there is results. I'm a result-oriented person. If you're coming off some defeats and you want success, you can't do the same thing and expect a different result. It's as simple as that. The party needs some kind of reset. It needs some kind of opportunity to decide whether or not we are on a pathway to success in 2025. I think every member of the United National Congress is very clear and believes and wants to win the election in 2025. I think that's the common base for every member of this party, or it should be, right? You have to decide whether or not you think we are, based on our past, going to do that, or you have to decide whether you think that something new or some course correction, as Chris would say, has to take place in order for there to be electoral success in 2025. When I look at the party and when I look at the constitution, for instance,
The constitution of the party speaks to various organs of the party. You have a party group, you have a constituency council, you have a national assembly, you have a special assembly, you have a congress of the party, you have a national congress. All of these things. When last, Chantal, when last did you attend the Women's Congress in the party? You're a strong female advocate in the party. Chris, when last did you attend the Youth Congress in the party?
Since I've become a youth and never.
And that's
What
the
is
point.
a youth congress?
So
I
in
don't
the
know.
constitution, believe it or not, there is a National Congress of Youth.
No.
Have you been to the National Congress of Youth?
Well, there would not have been one.
Have you
And
been to the National Congress of Women?
Who is the woman's chair?
And this is the problem that we are having in the party. The founders of the party created not a natex and not a leader. What they created was an organization called the United National Congress that has limbs, various limbs. If you're cutting off the limbs, how are we going to get past the finish line of an electoral success? This is a party that has to move in a certain way. You have to think about it as your car. Everybody here have a car, drives a car. They understand a car, right? If your engine not working, if your radiator not working, if your battery not working, if some part of that entire system isn't working properly, the car is going to shut down, and this is what is happening with the party. This is, and it's a beautiful thing, our UNC constitution and how our party was meant to function. It is a beautiful thing. There are interlocking arms. There are arms that start straight down from the party group all the way up to the National Congress for members to participate and then choose representatives to participate with a diffusion of power moving upward, but taking into that process the views of every member of this party. And it's not happening because you have cogs in that wheel that are not spinning. And so whose problem is that? Who is it to fix it? Kiel Taklalsingh can't go and fix it. It has to be the natex. It has to be the leadership of the party that has to look down and say, like a mechanic looks down in your bonnet. He has to look down and say, well, okay, this needs adjusting, we need to change the fan belt, etc. These things have to be done in the party, and it's not being done. And the question is, are we confident in the current natex or the current leadership of the party to fix what has to be fixed in order to win in 2025, bearing in mind that we've lost an election in 2015, we've lost an election in 2020. Members have a right. This is not to say that it has to change, everybody has to change. I am not saying that. But what I am saying is a call to democracy. Members are entitled to voice their opinions about the prospects of success of the party in 2025. And the way they do that is not by a mic. The way they do that is by voting in the internal election. And you have to give the membership the internal election.
Correct.
Yeah.
From 2015 to now, when we look at the faces on the national executive, we tend to see the same recycled politicians serving within these positions. And what are the results? We have only, we have lost 2015, we have lost 2020, well, the last local election, that was a loss. I consider that a loss as well. Now, we cannot move forward with recycled persons, and we cannot expect to also win an election by default. The PNM cannot be at its worst, and we expect to win. Why not be at our best and win an election? And that is what the party needs. It needs to reset, regroup. Now, charity begins at home. I would say that charity begins at home. Every Monday morning when you look, the political leaders in discussions with third parties, and they make up, they break up, but yet you are not willing to put your ego aside and bring your party together. How can you look outside for that support and your party is fragmented? You need to start at home, and that is where that reset is.
Thank you, Chantal. Chris.
Well, I think they were very comprehensive in the answers, so I don't know what
difference
what difference I can see. What I can see is I know that the United National Congress's supporters are tired. For the past decade, the UNC membership has been put through a number of things. They would have been on the defense, defending one person after the next, and they would have also been on the attack mode, attacking the PNM, attacking sometimes their own once upon a time UNC MPs or ministers if they, you know, in the democracy decided to challenge the status quo at that time. And so I think the membership is very tired. I believe that. But how do we test if this thing called the UNC is working? When you hear an argument being advanced, well, we're laser focused on getting ready for a general election. Okay, no problem. But how do we test that you are indeed laser focused, that the population is really interested in what you are selling to them? You know, that's, you know, politics, that's really what it is about. You have a product and you're selling this product to the population and they buy it with a vote. When you look at the last local government election, the United National Congress took the PNM to the Privy Council and won. That was a huge win for any political organization, any. And so that should have spilled over into the August the 14th election. And we would have been able to possibly see an overwhelming voter turnout. I mean, you had a campaign. We heard it was the mother of all local government elections. It felt like it was a general election. But you know what? The people of Trinidad and Tobago, only 30.34% of the voters came out and participated in the election. That is very low. And so when you hear that it's Indian walk lingua in the Princestown Corporation is in the courts because it's 1-1 and we're not too sure, right? Whether we win, whether we lose, that's not good. Because in 2019, in the last local government election, Rajesh Ral won that seat by over 300 plus votes. So are you indeed increasing? When you look at even San Fernando West, for example, those votes were so close you can't even, you know, deduce or predict what these numbers can look like in 2025, right? So I definitely think that the UNC has the opportunity, and it's so convenient that in our constitution it prescribes that now around this time, it just so happened, it's destined, that we have that opportunity to course correct. And I want to touch on the Tobago coordinator because that's very important. You are a national political party. When we look at what Mr. Pandey founded, we understood fundamentally what UNC was supposed to be. UNC, and I'm not saying this to say that we are anti-coalitions, you know. It has shown that it works. But Mr. Pandey came out of the NAR and he understood then that we needed a national party to take on the PNM. You mean to tell me, months have passed and you do not have a Tobago coordinator? You have in conversations with Mr. Griffith, with Philip Edward Alexander, who have berated you up and down town. I saw today, I think it was Mr. Roger. Right, I mean all of us as members and the membership, they know very well they defended the organization when there was a Boboli, there was beaten,
mannequin,
right? So, and then you come and you insult us like that. All right, no problem. But Tobago, there's a political organization in Tobago and a young guy, very young guy, the ship tilted. But in his logo, the TPP's logo, he anchored the ship. That's his logo, by the way. He was able to anchor the ship. This young man named Fali Chavez Augustine, we thought his political career was done. It was like, that's it. They mash up. Duke say he take up, he wickets and he ball and he bat and he say, that is it for you. And everybody thought, well, all right, the PNM going back in there. But Fali was able to do this. Why? Because you know what he does first? He listens. And you know why I say that? Almost every week he's conducting a consultation with persons. And so people trust him. He's willing to listen to them, not speak to them. He listens.
He has also called, much like, I think with PEP, he's called internally.
He has called internal elections because he himself is getting ready for a general election. He wants the best version of the TPP. PEP, I assume, They want the best version of the PEP.
And didn't our leader, or didn't our party, or our leader say recently in a meeting? So I think it was Mr. Griffith's party. So where's your constitution? Go on hold the elections or something like that?
Yeah.
So we are at a critical point where you have that opportunity as members. And I want to say this, because this is not any attack on Mrs. Bisessa. No one has asked, because I listened and my ear is good, because I'm young. No one has asked for her to step down. What so far that I understand is that we are sounding for an internal election that's constitutionally due to be called. And so the membership has the opportunity. And you know what the membership could say? Well, you know what, guys? We prefer this team, or we prefer this group, and that's okay. But you must give the membership the opportunity to decide what they wish to see. We must be ambitious people. And I'm sure the UNC is an ambitious organization. And so I think that reset is very important. And again, I want to commend, I'm probably sounding like a squeaky toy they wind up, right? Because I want to again want to commend MP Parry for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. You know what I found was very interesting was MP Parry did not criticize the political leader, but instead he criticized the leadership. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, here's the thing. In the United National Congress, we cannot dismiss, as much as we are in this state in what year are we in? 2024. Mrs. Prasad Bisessa has had an amazing career. She has had an amazing career. She would have contested the seat of Separia in 1991 against the UNC and the PNM under the NAR. And she was able to be so politically savvy that she got into the United National Congress. And I mean, at that time, we're talking about that would have been around in 1991 to 95. She quickly emerged into the UNC. Of course, Mr. Pandey saw, I think, the potential in her at that time. And so she ran for the seat, and she won the seat, right? She won the seat this time in 95. And so she went on to be the first female AG. She would have been the first female opposition leader, first female prime minister. And very quickly we must acknowledge that when she would have challenged the status quo in 2009, she said that the perception may have been then that Mr. Pandey could not take the party forward, you know. She said the perception may have been that then. Right? Because he would have lost, or the UNC at that time would have lost a number of elections under his leadership. So she contested, she became the political leader, got a huge mandate. I'm talking 29, 12 seats, right? So she has made her mark, and she has made her history, and she will go down in the books. I mean, our children, our grandchildren will read about her, right? But unfortunately, so there's a sour side to this now, right? Unfortunately, since 2015, we have been struggling as an organization under her leadership. It may or may not be her, but I find it very hard to believe that 10 years later, it's not her. So I, as a member, this is my opinion. I'm on this show to provide my personal opinion, right? And my opinion is that she has been the common denominator so far. And so I am also looking forward to see what is her response to this. Because these are your members of your party. Are you going to use your authority and your power? Or are you going to listen like Mr. Farley? Are you going to listen like Mr. Farley and get your act together and anchor the ship, right? Because you have an opportunity still to turn this around. Eh? We must never lose hope.
I want to be real.
We welcome that.
Very much real. What is so wrong if someone put aside Mrs. Bisessa? What is so wrong about that? We are speaking about democracy. I know that there is also a very thin line between a leader and a dictator. A very thin line. Now, I stood up and defend Mrs. Prasad Bisessa time time in, time out. Time in, time out, and I mean really defend. Even when members of the same NATEX was calling me and asking me, Roberts, whose side you on? Time we had to do something.
I didn't get no call like that.
Me neither, nobody called me.
Right.
They don't have my number.
Whose side you on? And I stood up and stood out and I said, look, I am not going to support any type of stab in the back politics. I am not supporting no shotgun politics, no cutthroat politics, and I must make this point, no Kobo politics. And many of the viewers may want to know what is Kobo politics. Kobo politics is some of those who waiting for something to happen to Ms. Prasad Bisesa just to ride into the sun. I consider that as Kobo politics. Because many doesn't have the fortitude to stand up. Many of them who criticize us today for taking a stand and standing for democracy, many of them will call quietly and say, look, the party cannot go forward, we can't move forward, time for change, time for this, time for that. And they know who I'm speaking of, many of them. The point I want to make coming out of all that is that nothing is wrong if someone asks the opposition leader to step down. Absolutely nothing is wrong. This is what democracy is about. People have the right to the freedom of speech. They could talk, the freedom of movement. We could assemble. We could do many things. So the point I'm making about this, I am almost on the verge of saying, look, I am not just interested in NATEX election alone, you know. I am almost at the point to say I am interested in all the elections.
Well, Mr. Roberts, I want to say, after that press conference that I witnessed, I also feel that way. And I think, and I think I did not only see the delivery in that. It has been some time since I've seen a performance like that in representation of people in a true way. And I saw perhaps a prime minister. That's what I saw.
Yeah. So I think honestly, this reset have to be a real reset and not a cosmetic reset, because there is some people in the NATEX right now, they are just holding on by the string. They run out of contributing to really move the party forward. And I said I'm going to be real. They kind of run out of ideas to move the party forward. Some of them just hold on to this tax break that they will get every 2 years. Some of them just holding on there for holding on sake. But if you are to look at contributions, even the parliament, watch debates in the parliament, watch the contributions that would be made in the parliament, and see if there's any real substance coming out from a good percentage of those who contribute there. And that is why even the PNM, the Keith Rowley administration, don't really take us serious, you know. They don't take the UNC serious, you know. Because the UNC, we have reached to that point, we come to that place where it seems as just same old. And that is one of the reasons that I really stand up strong, because I am of the view to move forward in this party that I am a lifetime member. We have to have changes. Changes must come. Whether some like it or some don't like it, there is some who must go for this party to exhale. That is no two ways about it. So going forward, I am saying that I am almost at the point where I am ready to call for all elections to be held in the United National Congress and let the base, the membership, have a say. Because for too long, we realized that the membership in the party, I heard the leaders spoke of people being utilized as sheep. But from what I'm seeing now, I don't know if it's an elevation or we decrease, but we are being used as goats now. That is how I see it. We are being used as goats. And until the membership of this party have its say in the affairs, for too long we have the hierarchy just controls the membership. Whatever they say to the membership have to obey. I am saying now that the hierarchy must listen to the membership. The membership of this party must have its say, and they must have their way also. And once we give the membership the opportunity to voice their concern and to speak out and to stand up and to say who we want to lead and who we want to follow, is until we will remain in the opposition in this country. That's my contribution.
If I were in court, I would say to the judge, I'd say, my lady, I adopt my learned friend's submission. I want to adopt my friend's submissions, Mr. Robert said, first of all. Secondly, democracy was founded on ancient principles. One of those principles is something called the social contract. It's a contract between the people and their leader or leadership. When you take on the responsibility of a leader, it is my view, you accept the risk or the responsibility of being criticized. You cannot be a leader and say that you want no criticism. That is a dictator. That is not a democratic leader. And so if we in our party are truly a party which respects the rule of law, respects constitutions, and respects democracy, our leader and our leadership would have no problem with being criticized. Respectful criticism.
Correct.
Nobody, as much as I may have a problem with anybody, right? As much as I may have a problem with any leader or anybody in a position or party, nobody outside my party could say anything bad about them. Because me and you will fight, right? I practice in Port of Spain. No other lawyer can back up my party. Even though I have little problems with them, I defend my party to the hilt. But when you see we have internal elections and internal ways to ensure that merit rises to the top, well, then I will say what I have to say. And that's the way a party is supposed to operate. All of this nonsense that has been pushed down our throat for years about discipline and keep focus and the eye of the bird and all of that nonsense, that is not, and I'm including Victor, that's not our generation. That is not our generation, including you, no? But that is not our generation. That is not what the politics of the future look like.
Correct.
The politics of the future is I should be able, and you know one of the things I loved about MP Parry today? He shook every single person's hand at that meeting. He took time to speak to everybody. And he got there before most of the people that got there. There was no tassa, no fanfare. He didn't have to come late and everybody stand up and clap him and, listen. No, he was there. He was one of us. He came from us. And there is a famous quote by an unknown author, which says, if you want to be heard, right, you have to come down among the people to be heard. You don't stand and shout from the mountain. You come down among the people and you will be heard. And I think that is what has happened. And when you come down there, expect some blows too. If you are a real leader, you could take some blows, you could take some criticism, and it's your responsibility to answer that. So I have no problem with anybody being respectful in their criticism to the leader and to the leadership of the party. In fact, I encourage it, and every member should want to encourage it, because I want to know what you think, because I want to know what your reservations are, so I could debunk your argument. And that's the only way we're going to know about our problem.
Or even adopt it. It might even be something that might be fruitful that you didn't think of, that you might be convinced by now.
Yes, I think so. I mean, there are different comments. There are useful comments. I saw a stupid comment today on a chat about something with coffin, and I don't know if it was directed to my friend. I know he will deal with that in his own show, right? I know he will deal with that person in his own show. But you have to be constructive in your criticism, right?
As Chris mentioned, since 2015, the membership of the UNC, we have been fighting, and I think as a lifetime member, I have all right to criticize the leadership of the party. And, I don't mean it in a personal way or a vindictive way, but when we look at, especially, Chris and my generation, we are the future of this country, and we cannot play raffle with it.
Correct.
Maybe give Kamala a chance. It's not a raffle. I am not going to take a chance with my future. where my future and generations to come depend on it. And when we look back, we would say, well, what if? And we have to stand strong, voice our opinions, and we have that right as members of the UNC. Now, when you hear a political leader state that my kindergartners have now graduated, we always hear the narrative that it's not Kamala, the people around her. But how much more can we, not hold her responsible for these decisions? In 2015, we criticized, well, it's the people around her. 2020, when we see a different set, it's the people around her. Again, I'm not playing raffle with my future and the future of this country. And I am voicing my opinion as a lifetime member of the party.
Thank you very much, Shanta. That was very eloquently put. We will now be opening the lines for live calls. The number is 868-373-5488. The number is 373-5488. It is on the screen, and we will be taking live calls. I ask that we all remain respectful as this show is being aired on the Family Network. Thank you very much.
I like that.
Yeah.
Any calls, Mr. Archie? You want to say something, Mr. Robert?
I feel like he wants to say something.
There's so many things that I want to
But
say.
I want to say, Mr. Roberts, one of the proudest moments in the party for me is when you led a one-man march from way down south, Erie, all the way up to north, with a coffin to protest against the deaths that were happening, I believe it was, in COVID. And then you and I also had a march for democracy, where we criticized the government for attacking independent institutions in this country.
Take a call.
Good evening. You are live on
Hello.
the air with Critical Conversations.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Hello. Good night.
Good night.
What I want to ask is, if the election is constitutionally due at a certain date, a certain month, and a certain year, why does the leader have to call it?
I think what he's saying is, if it is due,
Why isn't it?
why does the leader have to call it? Sorry, I think what the question is, if it is due, why did, well, I agree, and in fact, you had a comment by MP, one of the MPs, I don't want to call any names, in the papers I saw today, that said that, and I think you asked a question about it, that NATEX hasn't considered that, and that's the point, that is the exact point that we're raising here, the caller is right. It is constitutionally due, it's not for NATEX to call the election, it is constitutionally due, so what you have to do is, the NATEX is responsible for the logistics of the election. They will say where you go and vote, what day in the period, these things.
They facilitate.
That is the difference. Who are the persons in the booth, the polling station, the logistics, yeah? And the membership, correct. But the Constitution prescribes, and I want to say proscribes, what is the date for election, and that is important.
Okay, bye.
Correct, yes. Thanks for your contribution. I could say that, I think. I think we're all hosts on different shows.
Yeah, that is true.
And Kyle, as you raised that matter, I remember I took that coffin to President House in St. Anne's.
Yes.
With the wooden democracy there.
Yeah.
I took it straight to the gate.
Yeah.
And I said to the officer, I brought a present for the president. And what was this about? Was it because of some fame or something like that? It was because we have seen the effects of what happened when our constitution had been breached.
Yeah.
Take care.
Good evening. You're live on the air with Critical Conversations.
Have a good day. All right. I would like to express my little opinion about this entire scenario. First of all, I would like to think it's a healthy thing that is happening within the United National Congress, because it is very important that it's very important that people get the opportunity to vent, and especially when you're an experienced person within the party, right? And you would have seen some of the manner in which NATEC members conduct themselves. For example, the last local government election, we would have seen NATEC members personally given prospective candidates a list to attend meeting, drop them back, and that was done in the presence of sitting councillors within certain regional corporations, and certain NATEC members had opponents against certain members of corporations to and from political parties. We even have a situation where NATEC members are endorsing certain senators to replace certain MPs in the United National Congress, and this is being done almost 2 years ago. So the NATEC there is like a hit squad in the United National Congress, and the membership never got a chance to vent, to do a post-mortem about any election as way back as far as 2007 to 2010. They are just more or less like a rubber stamp to fill maxis, to eat chubby, drink doubles, and maybe a roti. And that is the way the UNC members are treated. Long ago, when you go to a UNC meeting in Mid-Center Mall, people would come by themselves on the Mr. Pandy, no maxis and all of that, no bus. What is happening now? You have a checkpoint, you have a campaign manager financing people from all over the country to check, and there's a crowd you see with all sort of recycled faces over and over again. And really need to come together and stand strong, whatever the consequence. The same way they sent to the Privy Council to call the local government election. Well, I want to see if this party have no shame to know an election is due on June this year, and what will be the situation. We are all here looking on quietly. Thank you.
The caller there, meaning, well, not every example that he gave, but the point, I think what that he's expressing is something that MP Parry said today. The most important people in the party are not the MPs, not the leader, not the senators. The members. And if that is his view as a member, some might agree, some might disagree, but if that is his view as a member, he should be entitled to express his view by way of an internal election.
No, I want to say that, so I want to just preface this first, that there are some UNC supporters who would need transport. We can acknowledge that. And so the party here organized that. I think we got another call. Okay, yes. Hello, good evening.
Yes, hello? Yes. Good night. Well, I want to find out if the election is held in June, and sorry, and his team losing, what's the next step? Because I'm sure that they will lose. What's the next step after that? All they will support the leadership then.
If next year Dr. Rowley comes and tell the country, you know what? I feel 2026 is that general election, you know.
Yeah.
How you will feel?
Yeah.
And what will the arguments be then? Well, Kamala couldn't win it anyways. That is not, I think that is not a good substantial point. I think what we must understand is democracy should be live and well. And so the membership will have the opportunity to elect persons if they see fit. And from what I listened in Mr. Parry's contribution, he did indicate that he would be willing to occupy any space on any leadership slate, NATEX, anything like that. He was not too specific because he understood that the call must come from the members. So I think that's...
But do you really think that the parity will win?
Well, I am not a seer man as yet. I'm not that, and when I do become one, I think I might be able to quicker answer that for you. But what I can tell you is that the membership will have the opportunity to determine that.
Okay, fine.
Right. Good Arch. And Chris, you are right. The issue here is not whether Parry win or who win. The issue is that the membership have the opportunity to select the people they want to lead us going forward. That's the issue, you know. The membership have the prerogative to choose the leaders that they want to go forward. So outside of that, everything else might just be a wide imagination.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's the point with that. But let's come back to this point, Kai, by the time we're waiting for the next one. And coming out of that, the reason for that wasn't for some fame. The reason was to express, look, if we allow our democratic process to die in this country, then all of us might as well go in a coffin. All of us.
Good evening. You're live on the air with Critical Conversation. Good evening. You're live on the air.
I was not talk on the phone, I'm not on the system. Take off, go down the radio.
I am on my phone with my TV at mute. Good night. I'm Mr. Victor, very much aware that this is the end of you in the UNC. After all the 80 work they did, putting coffee, planting coffee, all of it. Well, you celebrate in the TikTok that you made. Are you going to sell out any position in the UNC, knowing your faith after?
Pulling coffin, fighting for democracy, are you going to allow the election not to be called? That's the best I could get out of it. And I think our answer to that is very clear.
Yeah.
We are going to stand up for internal elections, so we can't that call. So you're telling about the coffin and democracy.
Right. So the point I'm making is that after all that we have done in order to get the sitting government to understand that democracy is important, constitutional rights is important, we cannot for 1 second be a part of this great party and allow anybody or any team of individuals to erode this document we call the Constitution. I am not prepared for that. I am going to stand up. It matters not what list they put me on, whether the list black, blue, because I yellow list already. Yeah. So it matters not. I'm sure I ain't going to be on the red, but it matters not. And just to strengthen that, there are few individuals, who I believe is misleading. The whole structure of the UNC. A few individuals. I will say more on that on my show. But on this show, I will say that for now. But we will not allow it to work, and I am going to stand up. It matters not. I was told recently that I am appointed an alderman and I can be removed. And that is the least of my problem, because as I said before, when my mommy made me, she made me a brown skin baby boy. Never made me a alderman. So that is the least of my problem. And this is some of the things that happen when you stand up for what is right. Some people blacklist you. Some people believe that they could give you pressure. Some people believe that they could demote you. Some people believe that they could have an NATEX meeting and not invite you.
Uh-oh.
They have a quorum though to have these NASEX meetings.
And these are some of the things that occur when you stand for what is right. Now, I told MP Parry that standing for what is right have a price to pay. There's a price to pay for standing for what is right. Moreover, the price we pay here for standing for what is right, I want to say that there's a reward somewhere else. There's a great reward somewhere else. And I believe, Kyle, in the saying that before the gods destroy you, they sometimes make you mad. Mm-hmm. And anybody who will not stand up for this election, anybody who will not call for this election, I think that the gods has already made them mad. Yeah. That is my position. Because we cannot give up our democracy like that. We cannot give up our democracy because we belong to an organization. And there was someone saying that, look, why you all coming in the public and say this, and why you all coming in the public and say that, and why you all doing this and doing that. Listen. Democracy is real. You know, I don't know if it's real to people, but it's real to me. And sometimes when you make noise quietly and it doesn't work, sometimes you have to make noise publicly.
I think it has a lot to do with our culture as well in the country. Because when we look at the US politics, for example, and how they would select their presidential candidates, they have vibrant debates.
Yeah, vibrant.
They have vibrant debates. You know.
Do we have a caller?
No, I think we're good.
We had, when we look at Kamala Harris, she was one of the biggest critics towards President Biden in the lead up to the Democratic candidates. And so we didn't hear it was crab and barrel and their dirty linens. What we understood was this is democracy and debate, unfortunately, and maybe this is something we can probably present to the political parties in Trinidad and Tobago. And as a young person, I would even say, coming out of the Youth Parliament, that maybe political parties and maybe the UNC could start it where they have debates.
We're going to go to a short commercial break, and we'll be right back.
The first move has been made in calling for the national executive elections for the United National Congress. Rushton Parry, the MP for Mayaro, made the call for the internal election, which is constitutionally due in June 2024, at a press conference held today.
If these UNC internal elections are not held, it will mean the leadership of our party will continue to be unprepared, rudderless, and weak. If these UNC internal elections are not held, it will mean the UNC will be destined to lose a third successive general election.
So from all accounts, it would seem as though Rushton Parry is looking to field a slate in the election. In the past, he would have indicated that he does not think the UNC is at its best to take on the PNM come 2025 when the general election is constitutionally due. He said he understands that this move that he's made today could mean an end to his political career if he is unsuccessful. However, while he admits that it could be political suicide, he said if the election isn't called, it could be political genocide from the UNC itself.
I also told him, if my one voice is me committing political suicide, then the silence of every one of you is committing political genocide. Because we are putting at risk the future of thousands, hundreds of thousands of members and supporters who have found a home in the United National Congress.
We've already heard people say Rushton should be quiet, he's not the one to lead, he was a former PNM member, etc., etc. Of course, he's come out and denied that. He said that was just political propaganda being spread. And you must remember that he was screened by the UNC in 2015 and in 2020, and he was selected as the candidate for Mayaru. And he eventually went on to win that seat. That said,
so I guess we may start this way. So final thoughts on this. I think this was quite comprehensive. I think we were able to treat with, I think, the main issues for now, and of course some of the callers as well would have raised, and this is important, and it's important to whatever platform you have to lift your voice. So I want to encourage every UNC member to raise their voices, and they can do this through, I think we're getting a call.
Good evening, you're live on the air with Conversations. Good evening, you're live on the air.
So, I ask Mr. Robles and Mr. Taklalsingh, if by chance Mrs. Prasad does not call the election, what next? Are they going to force it?
By chance the election
I don't want to contemplate that. This is a party that, as you have made the point, Chris, went to the Privy Council to ensure that elections must be called when elections are due. So, and I believe I heard a comment come out of an interview today with Mrs. Prasad Bissessar from on CNC3 when she had a press conference, and she was asked a question. She didn't want to speak too much about it, but she also said elections will be called to you. So I can't see why we need to go to court for that.
Hello, good night. Yeah, am I to understand that only if the internal elections are called, only then the UNC can beat the PNM at the poll?
The question is only if an internal election is called, then only the UNC could beat the PNM on the polls. If that's the question, I mean, I think the point of calling an internal election is, as Mr. Parry has said, the UNC has to create the best version of itself. And it's not a question of what I think or you think. It is a question of what the membership collectively thinks. It's a democratic process. You're looking at the end result. There is a process. We are a democracy. Our constitution says that we must call the election, and if we have to call an election, we call an election.
Yeah, but the end result. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, we're listening.
Yeah, but the end result is to remove this wicked government from office. So are you saying only if you have an internal election, whoever wins, it doesn't matter, only then that UNC can beat the PNM?
Kola, what we are saying, this have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with what we feel or what we think. What we are saying that there is due process within the United National Congress, after we stood up against the PNM for breaches of the Constitution, and before the election, the 2025 election, the 2025 general election, the United National Congress Constitution state that an election is due in June of this year, and we want to have the opportunity to put the best team forward to challenge the PNM come 2025. The rest is up to the people of the country to vote out the PNM, and the rest is up to you as a voter also to ensure that we beat the PNM.
And I just want to add to that, if I can add, caller, I just want to add to that, to answer you more directly. Let me answer you more directly.
I am agreeing.
Yeah,
I am agreeing with the internal elections and the constitution of the party. But what I am not hearing is that if you have an internal election, regardless of who wins, will that remove the PNM from office?
Let me put it like this. You cannot go to the population to win a general election and talk about the PNM is disrespecting the national constitution when your own party is not abiding by its own constitution. People don't just show up and vote. They vote for policy. They vote for whether or not the party is a good and strong party that respects its own values. So how are we going to sell the UNC as a democratic party in 2025?
I agree.
When in 2024? So what we are saying is, if we do our processes right, if we abide by our constitution and we have our internal election and we respect our own constitution, then we will beat the PNM in 2025. That is what I am saying.
I am agreeing. But the issue, if you go into an internal election, the party will be divided. And whoever wins, you'll have that division. Can you now say that you will beat the PNM who is united? And you're not answering that.
2020.
So here's the thing though. What we do know is that the 2010 election, we did very well, right? With a change in the status quo of the party. And we were able, through the new leadership at that time, they were able to go into conversations with the COP under the leadership of Winston Dukaran that perhaps maybe the former UNC executive before Mrs. Prasad Bisasa maybe may have been not able to do that the way she would have been able to do it. So I think that we can be a bit more open-minded as it relates to that. But there's something else that we're missing out here, Our track record for the past 10 years, the United National Congress has sat in opposition. And if we use the last local government election, that is not good for the United National Congress. Can the UNC risk a third term in opposition? That will be 15 years of the People's National Movement.
I have nothing against your thought and the rights to have an internal election. I want to listen to me carefully. I have no problem with this because it is due and this project and should be held. If there is division between the party for leadership, will they now remain united after the election to contest against the PNM?
Yes, and you know why? Yes, and you know why in 2010 you had an internal election. In 2010, hold on, caller. In 2010, you had an internal election in January of 2010, and by May of 2010, the UNC won the general elections. So regardless of any internal big fight in the internal election in January of 2010, within 4 months, the party was able to unite with itself, unite with third parties, and reduce the PNM to 12 seats with a major thing. So this internal, this fear that we have to have elections because it's going to cause...
You're not in court, you're not listening.
No, but you made a point. I'm giving you the answer.
Listen a little bit,
but I'm giving you the answer.
The election is due. They have to be held in the party.
Right.
The question is, when it is held in the party, will the party remain united to fight the PNM to remove them from office?
And we said yes, and we said by precedent, we have said yes, and the precedent is 2010.
That's what we're doing.
Could I answer?
Have a good night.
Could I just want to interject quickly. I just want to interject. I think the question that the caller is asking is
I was
regardless.
cross-examining there.
I think the question that what he's asking is regardless of who wins, will the UNC be united?
And yes, I think so, yes.
I would like to hope the answer is yes.
Yes.
But I think the manner in which the campaigns are run
Might be important, yeah.
is utmost important.
Yes.
Because what you cannot have is someone coming out here and berating you and creating propaganda and lies about you, and how you expect that person after you have lied about the person that way. And so I put all what is this slates or candidates or whoever, independents, on notice that we must engage. And you know who said this recently? Mr. Farley. Mr. Farley said recently in his last TPP meeting that for their internal elections they must behave very dignified. That is what he said. And so we too must behave very dignified in how we choose. And again, we saw it with MP Parry so far. He was able to be dignified. I don't think there's any disunity within the UNC. I think there's a lot of conversation now, but there's no disunity.
But if I could add something to that, the caller still there, Archie?
No.
Right. But if I could add something to that, so we don't need this. We had an internal election between a deputy political leader sitting now and the leader. We had, that was in 15? We had a brutal contest. Brutal. I mean, if you were to go back and look at some of the things that was said, it was brutal, fierce. But what happened to the end of the day? What happened to the end of the day? I am saying if the UNC were able to unite after that contest, I am not seeing nothing here now that the UNC would not be able to unite after an election.
But I, as being the young person at the youngest, I really hope, you see, I really hope that we can act as how we would like to behave for a general election. Load up the matic. Well, I don't know. Is there a target voter? I mean, that we have to be a target voter. I don't know. So that's why maybe that also is a clear example as to why we need the NATEX election, because that was my opinion, right? My opinion. Not everyone would, but that was, I think, an error, because Stand Your Ground was a very, very, very good. I mean, you had the People's National Movement come to tell the population after so many years. I think that would have been their third local government election. They now want to reform. And so you had Stand Your Ground. Timely, because of course you saw the number of home invasions. But it became scandalous and bacchanal because of your messaging.
Yeah.
I would like to reclaim my time.
Any other final thoughts on tonight's topic, panelists?
Go ahead.
Oh, my turn. I would just like to commend MP Parry for having that bravery and standing up for persons who may have been silenced within the party or afraid to let their voices be heard. And I would like to remind the political leader, the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Thank you, Shanta.
Closing thoughts. Today was fantastic. It was an excellent exercise in democracy and free speech. We need to encourage it more in the party, and I think with more free speech, we're going to be a stronger party. And when the elections come, people must contest the positions that they're interested in, let the membership decide, and after that, everyone must get back together and get on track and deal with 2025 and get into power.
So I want to say to the membership of the United National Congress, this party belongs to you. It's your party. You must have your say. Do not allow your party to be hijacked by anybody, anyone, or any group. This is your party. You have your say. You must demand that free and fair elections are held internally, and you must choose the best. You must choose the best individuals, put them in the leadership position, and I assure you that all of us will work hard to ensure that we get into government, that you can be the beneficiary of your party.
The last thing is, as I said in the Express article, I again want to put the younger members on the UNC bench on notice. MP Parry made a clarion call. He was a conduit. Of course, because the membership went to him, a number of persons would have gone to him. And so I am looking on to see what they do. And so I put them on notice, of course, to see. We have a couple days. And we have a critical conversations next week, so we'll be able to follow up on that.
Thank you. That wraps up our discussion tonight. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to our esteemed guests for sharing your insights and your perspectives on this very critical topic. And I would like to leave our viewers with a quote. Always stand up for what is right, even if it means standing alone. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in to Critical Conversations with the Compass Foundation. Have a good night.